And we are live with another Scratchcast. We have
All right, and
a few fun things planned, which we'll put
and
on
I just
screen share so everybody can see.
and I just got a yellow roller ball, so that means 5 1-ups, or
Well,
as we used to say, free men. But I think that was misogynistic. So
I do remember saying that. That's pretty funny.
You know, I never said Freeman. I was always one up.
Yeah, it
yeah,
kind of alternated between them. I was like, oh, sometimes it's one up, sometimes it's free guys, sometimes it's free lives. Never free women
the
though.
one thing I do remember though is we used to call levels boards. So it's like I couldn't get past the 3rd board, but we wouldn't say board 3. We would say level 3.
Yeah, or stages, I guess.
Yeah. Because I remember I had an uncle that played the licensed Spider-Man movie game for PS2, and he was saying it was so hard he couldn't get past the 1st board,
Okay.
which it wasn't. For the record, it was very easy.
Well, it'd be
Well,
like watching my mom try to play friggin' Super Mario World. It just won't happen.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen my mom play a video game. My dad's played Metroid.
yeah, I
But
tried to back in the day, but she was she didn't get the coordination down, so it was kind of funny to watch. Like how do I do this? And it's just like I think it's a generation thing where they just don't really understand how to control what's happening on the screen, or like the idea of controlling what's on the screen is so foreign that it's hard to get a grasp on how it works.
Well, the funny thing is, my mom was actually better gamer than I was when I was a kid.
Really?
She used to play Super Mario Brothers, and she beat it before I did.
Oh, nice.
But then one fateful day, somebody erased her Zelda save, and she never picked up a video game again.
That's sad.
what are you talking about, Riskman? Girls don't play video games.
Yeah, narrative destroyed.
Mom's playing video games? Now that sounds preposterous.
Well, it's not like I was saying she was playing Call of Duty or something like that.
Well, I don't think anybody should be playing that. Well, that's just my swollen. Actually, I don't know if it's a funny story, but a long time ago when I was in the single life myself, and I was trying to date around, there was this girl, and those were the only kinds of games she would play. So whenever I would talk about like Final Fantasy VI or something like that, she's like, "Oh, I don't play those old games" or something. But she was my age.
That's
like I only play Halo and Call of Duty.
Yeah, I've met some people like that. It's kind of I wonder. I don't know. Maybe they got into it way later, and then anything back in the past, it's like, oh, those graphics are just terrible. I think it has a lot to do with when you get into the hobby, because you notice a lot of people that are like, oh, well, Final Fantasy VII was my first RPG, and that's my favorite Final Fantasy game. But for me, I played the original first, and then I guess I missed out on the Nintendo sequels, but I picked it back up on the Super Nintendo when 4 was known as 2 and 6 was known as 3. But I would have to say that those two are my favorites.
Yeah, that's how it is for me. Like my first RPG was Dragon Warrior, and I can assure you that was not my favorite. That's not my favorite RPG.
Yeah,
It
I
might have
think
been my
Dragon
first,
Warrior, yeah, Dragon Warrior was one of my first ones too.
but at least it didn't have ineffective.
That's true.
The first one I played was Final Fantasy 4 or 2 or whatever you want to call it nowadays. But 6 is the one that really solidified my genre of RPG playing.
Yeah,
I'd have to say that same for me because I used to rent those all the time, and 6 was always the one that was always checked out at Blockbuster, and so I always had to settle for 4, and so that's why 4 is or I have so many nostalgic memories of 4, but 6 I thought was what really solidified it for me.
Yeah, I think 6 still probably has like the strongest cast of characters and backstories and stuff.
Well, I don't know. Chrono Trigger also has a. It doesn't have as many characters, but it seems like they all have their own storylines that go along with them.
Yeah, that was actually a really. I guess they had a really clever way of inserting each character to be important to their individual timeline and have their own story involved in that.
And the fact that they all had different dialogue depending upon who you had in the party at the time.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. I probably I've played through that game so many times, and I probably still haven't seen each and every variation of dialogue.
Well, if you want to talk about a game that does things like that, Dragon Quest VII all the way. I think the translators once said there were like 20,000 pages
Oh my
of
god.
in-game dialogue, and that's partially due to the fact that you can talk to your characters at given periods of times and understand their position. And surprise, surprise, just because you finish a storyline doesn't mean that the story is necessarily over. You can always go back at another time and see if things have changed since you've left, or they don't really do that in games anymore, which makes me sad.
That's Dragon Quest VII, you said?
Yep.
I know what I'll be playing soon.
And in addition to the more robust class system that they had compared to 6, which what a surprise that is, that a game that came after the other one has a more fleshed out gameplay mechanic. But no, it's actually they're both good games. But 7 is a little bit more interesting to me because it feels basically like the mini quests or the side quests in Chrono Trigger, where you would go between different times and that would change the outcome of your present.
Oh, okay.
That's basically what the majority of the game is. You're going into different periods of time, and then that affects your current period.
Yeah, I really liked the way in Chrono Trigger where you would, you change something throughout one of the timelines, and then you go back or you go forward, and you see that the world map has changed. That was pretty cool.
I still raise issues with Chrono Cross and the fact that Core ended up taking down Gardinia or whatever you want to call it, because you made their mayor all cheerful and cheerful. Sorry, just one of those things that's always bothered me.
I guess maybe they were going with the outcome that you didn't make him a charitable person. Although I don't know how that would explain how you get the Sunstone later on.
Yeah.
But Chrono Cross, I tried to play it, and I just I couldn't do it. I couldn't make it through.
It's not the worst thing ever, but I think part of the reason I enjoy it even marginally is because of the music. If the music were just terrible,
yeah,
I wouldn't like it.
The music is really good.
That's the same feeling I have towards Xenogears. Like, everybody since it's been out has said that's their favorite RPG of all times, and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, the music is good, but there are a lot of times when it feels like it's just, there are things that they shouldn't have done.
I think for Chrono Cross, it depends on your attitude when you went into it. Like, for me, I was like, oh man, finally a Chrono Trigger sequel. And then I get there and I'm like, what the hell is this? Because, it's none of the original characters, it's not the same art style, it's not the same team. I mean, yeah, they had the great music, but it's like if you go into it with the attitude, oh, this is a sequel to Chrono Trigger, you're going to be disappointed. But if you go into it like, oh, this is its own RPG, then it's probably a better game in your mind.
Well, I took great offense to their varied cast of characters. It seemed like it was playing Pokemon, trying to collect them all, and they didn't really have the backstory, or what they had was a accent generator. So it was the same dialogue, just with a slightly different accent if you took various party members on whatever quest.
So Dragon Quest IV.
Oh, God. Huh. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I remember that because Kid had an accent, but I think what really ruined it for me was when somebody was like, "Oh, basically the original characters are villains or something like that, or Robo is the main villain or something like that." Spoilers. But somebody told me that before. I was like, "Oh, well, I'll give it a play," because he never played Chrono Trigger, so he was just like, "Well, this is a fun game." And I was telling him about Chrono Trigger, and then he was telling me about the ending or where he was at, and it was basically like, oh, Chrono and Robo and all of them were behind it all or something.
That's... Yeah, I just don't like... I guess I don't like when a company does a sequel to a game that's like really, like a landmark achievement for them, and they don't get the same team together. It's just, it doesn't have the same feel to it. I mean, if you're gonna make a sequel to something like that, you really got to make sure you do it right.
Or well, what's worse to me is when the fans can do it better, but because of the whole intellectual property thing, they basically stopped that from happening.
Oh, you've been playing Riskman. You've been playing. Was it Flames of Eternity or Crimson Echoes? One of them.
Crimson Echoes, and I will continue that playthrough eventually, but it's just so wordy.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, do you think it's... How do you feel about it in general, though? Like, I don't know. Is it worthy of a sequel?
I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, I'm so happy to play as that cast of characters again. Magus in particular is a favorite of mine, and the fact that you play as him so early on, spoilers, it was nice. But I want to know just how in the hell you go from being able to defeat Lavos to not being able to fight off a few little beasts.
Yeah, that's the one thing that RPG sequels have a hard time with justifying, the level gap and power.
Or Mega Man games.
I like the way the Dragon Ball, what was it? Legacy of Goku and Boo's Fury. I like the way they handled it, where you started the next game as level 50. Like, level 50 was your max in Legacy of Goku 2, and then you play Boo's Fury, and you're already level 50. So the max level in that game, I think, was like, I don't know, 150, something like that.
We mentioned Xenogears earlier, and one thing that I do want to point out is they actually do address the whole leveling thing, because he's like, they unlock what is considered like a limiting factor for humanity, and the one guy who happens to have one eye, who's a prince, is like, wow, that means I can do all this really cool stuff now, right? And they're like, no, you have to train to use it properly. And I'm like, oh.
And then I guess you could mention Final Fantasy IV After Years. Because they kind of had that problem too, where the characters are obviously a lot weaker than they were when they defeated Zeromus, but they also had, a time gap of like 17 years. So you could be like, well, it's a peaceful time, so they've spent the last 17 years sitting comfortably and losing some of what they used to have. Although I don't know how they would justify that with the magic. You would think that you would learn a spell and not just forget it.
Unless you're Tella.
Yeah.
We got precedence. We got precedence for forgetting spells. So we're good.
Well, he was also 8,000 years old, so.
Hey, that's ageist.
Yeah.
It is, but I worked in the IT industry, so that's expected of us. You have to be 25 to 30, and you have to be a dude, bro.
I don't even know.
Stanford or
I don't even know what that consists of anymore.
it's basically how feminists define the patriarchy.
Okay.
Because remember Shanley, who I don't want to hijack this Scratchcast talking about her, but you remember Shanley, like
Yeah.
that was where she first started talking about the patriarchy and all that stuff, and then that's when she had her subsequent BSOD. But we won't sully this Scratchcast talking about her.
Well, I'm about to sully it because this can kind of segue into our topic. Well, one of the topics here. Let me see if I can do this right. Try to screen share. Is it working? I don't even know.
I think so. I'm looking at
Okay. It's Streamception, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So
maybe somebody will get the joke.
we're back to Kotaku and Street Fighter 5 in particular. This article, which is not an article at all, it's actually maybe three sentences and then a quote from Capcom, but it's basically trashing on Mika's ridiculous outfit, which has been ridiculous since Street Fighter Alpha 3. As you can see here, she's using her technique where she spouts gender fluid. But let's see, what does he got? All right, here's a strange one. Mika, a wrestler who first appeared in Street Fighter Alpha 3, is joining the cast of the newest Street Fighter game, impractical costume and all. They have a video of her techniques. Well, I guess we won't watch it. I don't remember how long it is, so I don't want to bore everybody with that. But basically, she has like a tag team partner in the video, and you can do like team up wrestling moves and stuff. She also does a Stone Cold Stunner, if anybody remembers that.
Oh, hell yeah!
Exactly.
That was like a Macho Man / Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I apologize for that bad impression.
That's all right. It works. But apparently she looks fun to play. But this is an odd choice given Mika's lack of pedigree. Cool throwback though, says Capcom. So I don't really understand why they bothered to do this. I mean, it just looks like they put up a post just to insult her outfit, which is pretty stupid, and I'm going to show you why. If you go to Google and you type in female Japanese wrestlers, and then you go to images, would you look at those outfits? Yeah, not accurate to reality at all, is it?
All I know is I'm very offended.
Right? I mean, this is just, it's so petty. There's so much other stuff you could be covering when it comes to these games, and they want to talk about an outfit. And I mean, it's silly to me just because they're like, oh, this is ridiculous and unrealistic, but then here we are, reality. How is it any less ridiculous? I mean, that's just the style.
And it would be cultural appropriation or something to insult their preference in attire.
I love one of the commenters in there. Martial arts does not have a dress code.
That is true. But they're always doing this. They're always like any chance they get to throw in some dig at this agenda of like over-sexualize women in video games. I mean, have they looked at the rest of the cast of Street Fighter? You could argue that the cast of Street Fighter is extremely diverse, as they like to say. You know, you've got characters from all over the world, all different backgrounds. but yet they still got to find something to complain about. It's like, well, yeah, you're portraying this, but you're not portraying it properly.
Well, I know Zhang,
Clearly.
he doesn't wear much in the way of clothing. I think actually Canon says he might actually be gay.
Really?
I think I read that somewhere, but don't quote me on that.
I mean, it wouldn't matter either way, but these people would be like, well, let's write a 20-page article on how Zangief is gay.
Or something about rape culture.
Right.
It's always one of those things.
But yeah, there's a lot of comments in here where basically they're complaining about how they're portrayed, the females are portrayed. It's like, oh, ridiculous outfits. But then you got a couple of people saying things like, any woman who derives her body image standards from a 20-year-old Street Fighter character design probably would have ended up pretty screwed up from anything. That person is probably banned, by the way.
Yeah, I was about to say, do they even ban people? I don't know what they do anymore.
Come on, this is Tumblr or Twitter. This is Kotaku.
They have I don't know, their commenting system is pretty stupid. Like, there's these stars, and you can, like, basically upvote posts, I believe. I'm not exactly sure how it works. But some users, like, if I were to sign up and comment right now, I think my post would be, like, grayed out, and then people would have to upvote that post in order to make it more prominent in the comments. Supposedly it's the system they inserted to remove, like, I guess to stop spam, since there was that time when people attacked Jezebel or something with like gifs of porno or something. I don't know, something.
No, all of their sites were getting hit pretty hard with spam, and that was when they were using their own custom software, which is what that is. So it was still when Kinja was around.
Right. But I guess my question when it comes to these types of complaints about representation and all of that, I mean, there's millions of video games out there. Don't quote me on that because I'm not sure how many there actually are. But there's plenty. And if you don't like the way something looks in one of them, surely you can go out there and find one that you do enjoy rather than focusing on one that you don't, or complaining about it and saying this needs to change. I mean, if you're going to be like, well, I'm a fan of Street Fighter, but I sure hate the way they portray their women, I mean, if it bothers you that much, you got to take the entire package the way it is. It doesn't really make too much sense to me to go out and be like, I love this game, but here I am protesting their representation of female characters.
There's a "and don't call me Shirley" joke in here somewhere. I just don't know where it is.
There is. I actually thought of that right after I said it.
Oh, airplane.
My favorite part.
I find it funny because I find it funny though because nobody's complaining about the blatant racism that they have of like DJ or.
Oh, where you could say it's like. Basically, each character's nationality is basically the most stereotypical view of them possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a stereotypical view coming from Japan, though. So that makes it
so
okay.
It's acceptable.
Right.
But
which
God
is
help you if you underdress a woman.
Which is why when Kotaku will sit here and posture about this shit, but then. The next day they'll post something like Japan and their crazy underwear vending machines, or like something like that.
And which reminds me, I thought they were apparently very knowledgeable on Japanese culture, and yet they didn't realize that outfit was common in Japanese wrestling.
Right. They actually have a few contributors that live there. There's at least two I can think of, and they're the ones always posting those only in Japan posts, Watch a squid eat babies with chopsticks or something.
Or watch somebody dressed up as Batman drive on a freeway.
Motorcycle, yeah.
Yeah, or motorcycle.
You know, I would like to go to Japan one day and just cosplay every day and just see if I get any weird looks.
I guess it would depend what district you went to. Like if you went to the one city there that's famous for all the otaku stuff, it's probably pretty common.
But I'm sure if you went somewhere like Sapporo or something like that, they'd be like, all right, what are you doing?
Well, I know where I'm going then. I'm going for the place with the most looks.
And then the other,
Get up here.
I mean, I don't know if anybody has anything left to contribute on this, but
Lay down.
I'm empty. I've unloaded everything that I can think of against this particular topic.
yeah. The other thing that I found was this Tumblr blog, which is apparently titled "Fuck No Video Games," and FNVG is an independent blog keeping you up to date on toxic behavior and offensive content, sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, and more in the games industry. If you'd like to submit a tip or provide feedback on the site, you can use our Ask box, contact us on Twitter, or email us at fnovideogames@gmail.com.
We'll talk about a public service.
Right? It's just... they're using, like, I don't know, Tumblr as a platform for this, and you know that's where people get offended by everything, so you can only imagine the types of submissions that they must receive here. I mean, the very first post is a hiatus post, which was apparently 6 months ago, so they're not very active anymore, but it's just funny because, look, trigger warning, mental health is this post, and all they're saying is that the reason for their hiatus is because of mental health. I mean, how is that triggering at all?
Because somebody said the word mental health.
I guess. But they're saying, oh, well, the escapist endorses transphobia because, I don't know, apparently because they hired that Liz girl from the whole Gamergate situation and Brandon Morse.
Oh yeah, that is old news nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah. If you want to... Oh, because he said something... He said if you want to be trans, then you go right ahead. Don't force everyone else to pretend along with you. Well, okay. I guess that could be viewed as offensive, but does one comment on Twitter really mean that they shouldn't be hired in their field of work?
Yes. Of course it does. That's what it will always ever mean.
I mean, that comment is pretty rough, but on the other hand, it's like, Twitter, you gotta understand that Twitter doesn't really capture your full thought. It only gives you, like, a few, like, what is it, 150 characters? 120 characters?
140, actually.
140, sorry. To try to vocalize an entire thought, and you can't get a full thought down.
Yeah, there's been so many times where I'll write out a post and I'll be like, oh, there's no way this is going to fit. So I have to dumb it down to the simplest form possible and just like you hope that your intention gets across. So there's not much context here for this post. I mean, he could be talking about the people that you see posting on Tumblr where they're like, I'm gender fluid. Some days I'm a girl, some days I'm a boy, just because one day I want to wear makeup and the next day I don't. And to that I say, just how do you, on one hand, argue against the use of gender roles or traditional gender roles, and then just because you have a preference that doesn't fit in with that, it somehow means you're not the gender that you were born as?
Well, I wear makeup pretty much every time I cosplay, so yeah.
So on the days that you cosplay, clearly you're a female.
Apparently, let's tuck it in.
Well, if anything, I learned that Will Smith in Enemy of the State is gender fluid because he did say you'd be surprised how a pair of edible panties can make a guy feel sexy.
There you go. That's
Sweet.
representation right there.
And POC. So it's
Very
like
important.
a 2-for-1 special.
You know people would be supporting his Patreon.
Or GoFundMe or whatever these kids are using these days.
GoFundMe is like if you just want money, but you don't have anything to offer people in return.
That makes sense. I actually gave some yesterday because a cousin of mine, her 12-year-old son apparently died 2 days ago.
Oh wow.
That's harsh.
But it wasn't her who started the GoFundMe. I think it was another.
Oh, it's
a different
somebody else in there in care of, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think situations like that, it does make sense, especially if it's somebody that is going through a rough time and they don't have the funds to maybe they don't have the money to pay for the funeral or something like that, which I think makes sense. If people want to give, there's no problem there. But the thing that I take issue with, I guess, is when you have people that kind of take advantage of those systems, and they're just like...
the people who can go and get a job at Domino's and pay for their own whatever they want.
Right, where they're like, well, I'm a starving college student, but here I am on my high-speed internet posting this from my iPhone. It's like, clearly you're not that... No, you've got stuff. I mean, you've got an internet connection. You have things.
But spoilers, who isn't a starving college student? Isn't that the whole joke?
Yeah, that's like the stereotype, basically. I mean, so...
Ramen noodles and all the shrimp you can steal.
You mean acquire. There's no such thing as stealing, or there's no such thing as stealing or thieves. They are item acquisition specialists or treasure hunters.
That's right. There's a huge difference.
Like, bro, do you even lift?
Oh God. That was a whole other bucket of fun to go through. Yeah, I'm a role-playing blog, but here's the stuff I stole. Here's a photo.
I'm part of the lifting community. The community of people that take things that don't belong to them.
And somehow justify it with, I'm poor, even though you're stealing luxury items and not food.
Posted with my Nikon SLR digital camera.
Yep, it only cost me $1,200 that I could have used for more appropriate things.
But I mean, I got it at Costco, so, discount warehouse store. Totally counts, right, guys?
Yeah, but the whole, like, cherry-picking Twitter comments and then using that to try to say that this person is sexist or this person is misogynist or whatever, it's kind of silly. I don't know.
Well, again, like I said, he probably couldn't vocalize, write down his entire thought, and
localize is probably the right word. He couldn't localize it for the internet dialect, which is basically lol and derp, and it used to be I'd hit it. I don't know what happened there.
Now they've dropped those kind of sayings for. There's like all these weird terms that I don't even understand anymore. I saw somebody say SMOL, and it's not an abbreviation. It's just another way to say small, apparently.
What the hell?
Like when people would spell time with a Y?
Yes.
Those darn kids.
or women with a Y, because it can't have men in there.
Or like when people like thought THOT. which I don't know why they have to. Isn't that misogynistic because you're saying all women are prostitutes? But I mean, what do I know?
Well, if you're a sex positive person, then sex work is a legitimate form of employment, and you can't shame them for it. So being considered a slut or a whore is not a bad thing if you are positive towards the movement. It's only when you use it as a derogatory term is when it becomes problematic.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm using it as a derogatory term, so it just became problematic.
Apparently, manspreading is in the dictionary?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Are you serious? Oxford, you are... Oh, wow. Oxford Dictionary adds manspreading, butt dial, and cat cafe.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore!
Yeah, that's about what it amounts to.
Now that's offensive right there.
Okay, so this is hilarious because right off of the bat, this article opens with "cue the mic drop," which is another one of those internet sayings that I could live without.
Or internet activities in general. I remember when Hulu kept trying to get us to watch the Mindy Project. They had a clip from that show where that's what she did, and it was supposed to be ever so hilarious because, get it, guys? She dropped a mic, she's socially awkward. That's funny, right, guys? There aren't enough shows and movies about people who are socially awkward.
No, not at all, and not enough movies or TV shows starring those quirky actresses like Zooey Deschanel or whatever her name is.
Wait, being socially awkward gets you a TV show or a movie? Why haven't I been in a TV show yet?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know.
To say, where's my contract?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's not the real socially awkward people. It's these pseudo socially awkward people. It's like what ordinary people think socially awkward is.
Oh, so you mean kind of like how Big Bang Theory is written by people who think they know what geeks are?
Right.
Yeah, and how... Well, I've already complained enough about that show. But yeah, all the people that I used to work with that thought that was the funniest and greatest show in the world, and it made them so much smarter for watching it.
Well, right. People like, I'm smart because I got the joke. It's like, well...
You won the prize!
Well, if that's all it takes to be smart is to get a joke from an unfunny television show, well, then I guess I better watch more Family Guy.
There you go.
But,
apparently, the list gives legitimacy to the acceptable time of day to start drinking, known as beer o'clock, and finally acknowledges that awesome sauce can be used to describe something great. I mean, does that really require dictionary definitions?
I don't know, but I know awesome sauce is one of the worst words I've ever heard.
But hangry is now irritable as a result of hunger.
I've actually heard that one before.
Really?
That's called being diabetic.
Yeah, we already have a definition for that. We already have a word for that definition. Oh, man. I'm surprised. I wonder if they have salty and thirsty with their alternate definitions, because the internet loves to use those lately.
All I know is...
what I want to... Go ahead.
All I know is the fact that manspreading is now in a dictionary makes me want to believe that it's now wine o'clock.
Well, you know what they used to say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Oh, jeez. I actually had a waitress make that joke probably like, I don't know, less than a year ago, or maybe a little over a year ago. I think I was the only one at the table that rolled my eyes.
You know,
Are
it's
you-
funny because it's actually 5:40 where I'm at right now. So.
There you go. You're 40 minutes overdue.
Doxing.
Oh, come on. Time zones are a big place. I could be in Canada for all you guys know.
Or
That's
Washington
true.
State. But if you're in Washington State, that's very unfortunate. Please stop doing that.
What?
Actually, I think if you were in Portland, that might be worse. I'm trying to remember, but I know something stupid happened in Portland recently. I mean, it was the typical hipster SJW stuff, but I can't remember what it was.
Well, you've got
I
that
probably-
thing where what was the thing? Django or something?
Oh, yes, the Python web application framework, Django.
What did they do? I looked at it. I don't even remember what they did.
If I'm not mistaken, the ticket was that somebody wanted to go into the documentation and change
Oh,
instances of
master and slave or something.
yeah to I can't remember what they said, but I think they ended up just saying that primary and secondary made more sense or something like that.
Right.
And of course, this is not the first time that that's happened. So that's a project that's known, for those not in the tech world, it's known as an open source project, or it's open source software, which just means the source code is readily available and it's not hindered by intellectual property laws. Well, it can be depending on the license, but that's another issue altogether.
Read your
And-
EULAs, ladies and gentlemen.
Wait, what did you say?
Read your EULAs, ladies and gentlemen. And
Yeah,
user license
yeah.
agreement.
Yeah, especially if you use any Oracle products. But that's not a joke I'm here to make today, where they're saying, hey, if you found flaws in our product, you're breaking your EULAs, and therefore stop doing that. Or I think it was like the CIO or somebody of Oracle basically was very condescending and patronizing to her customers and telling them not to do that. Even though they're like, well, we know you're doing it because you're worried about security, especially in an age where people or corporations are getting hacked. Like there wasn't the Ashley Madison breach yet, so they were saying Target and whoever else got breached and had to pay out billions of dollars in lawsuits because of it. But we're not here to make fun of Oracle today. Any other day, maybe, but not today. So what happened is somebody decided to go through the documentation, and they wanted to change all of that. And of course, it led to a lot of the comments were like, I don't agree with the term that you're using, because I can't remember what he wanted to use instead. But I think this is a very important topic to discuss.
Oh, I actually have it pulled up on the screen here. They want to replace it with leader and follower.
Which it's only a matter of time before that would be problematic, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's a whole discussion about it, and doesn't it end up going through, like, isn't there a patch? Well, he submitted the patch, which means he already went into the code and changed. He didn't change any code. He changed documentation of the code, and then he submitted it as what's called a patch, and basically that request is just allowing his changes to go in. And I think they accepted it. So I think now the documentation probably says primary and secondary instead. I think that's stupid, but that's not what bothers me the most about that situation. For any aspiring software engineers out there, especially if you want to work at a startup, whenever you're dealing with recruiters because they don't know what they're doing, a lot of times, if they're at these smaller or newer hip companies, they will want to they want to see, reasonably, they want to see code that you've done to make sure that you're actually telling the truth about what you're saying. Problem is, they're usually lazy at it, so they wouldn't, if you sent them code, they wouldn't know. And a lot of times, if it's just a headhunter, they're not they're not sending it to a hiring manager. They're the gatekeepers. So they're just trying to make sure that this person's even worth talking to. So whenever they have these ads, it'll be like, oh, submit your GitHub profile or some other popular codes. Show me your Stack Overflow profile so I can see how many points you have on Stack Exchange and all this other crap. And
Yep.
what inevitably happens, because when people do stuff like this, no, they didn't change the code, but because they submitted a patch and they got accepted, some recruiter who's not going to pay attention, they're going to look at these people and say, oh man, these people really know Python and Django, so they must be experts. So let's spend a lot of time to hire them, and everybody will buy into the belief that this is the best candidate that they can ever get. And all that person did is say, I want to change master and slave to primary and secondary.
So
But
basically,
these people
they're
get
getting,
handed.
yeah, they're basically getting credit for something a lot more important than it is.
Well,
And this isn't the only time it's happened too. There's software that has a really bad reputation called Node.js, and like everything else in the tech world, if it has a bad reputation, that means it's really popular and everybody's going to use it, even if it's not good. And this is definitely an example of what it's not good. It's not good. I know a lot of people probably don't know, but Node.js is basically it's like a web development framework or application. It's for making web applications, and it's all written in JavaScript.
Didn't you
So-
say Depression Quest or something was
Yeah,
written in something similar?
yeah. Depression Quest was using Twine, and Twine is based off Node.js. So it's basically it's a crappy game written in a crappy programming language. So it's apropos for them to do that. And somebody did the same thing there. They went to go change all sources of the documentation to be gender neutral. So they replaced all the pronouns to be gender neutral pronouns, and then they tried to submit it, only in that case, who the person was at the time rejected the patch. He said, I'm not going to waste resources on just changing pronouns in the documentation. If you have a legitimate documentation change that you want to submit, then do that. But
Right.
if you're just going to change it to be gender neutral, I don't want that crap in here. And that got a huge backlash to the point of where I think either he had to be kicked off the project, and it's an open source project, so but sometimes corporations will back the project. So I think it was either the corporation either had to back out or they fired him so that they could put somebody else in, and it led to this big uproar because it was like, oh well, you're being transphobic and all that stuff. And
Oh,
somebody
God.
made the same exact point, because Node.js is so popular in a lot of startups, and so recruiters are, if all they go to do is go to GitHub and they see, oh well, you submitted a patch and it got accepted, they're not going to see all you did was change he to Z or whatever. They're going to see, oh, you submitted something and it got accepted. And so they're going to think you are an expert. You might not know anything about JavaScript, and you might not even care about, some people care about that stuff, but a person could reasonably not care about any of that gender pronoun stuff, and they're just doing it because they want to get a job, and working for free is the best way to get a job in that type of arena. And so they go and do that. And so that's all the development industry has turned into, to me, is it's just one giant popularity contest to see who is who can go to speak at the most events possible. It's not based on merit, which is ironic, because you'll go work at these companies and they will spend countless sessions or countless work days telling you that you have to work really hard. Right, you have to have experience, and you have to work really hard, and you won't be able to just work your way and get where you need to go right away. It takes 5 years to get wherever you want to get, and you need to have all of this experience, and you need to show, you need to have consecutive high review scores and all that other stuff, and then they'll go and they'll either promote somebody who's been there for 5 months just because that person sounds like a hot shot, or they will go and hire somebody off the street with no experience and put them in a high level position just because, well, it said on their resume they were an expert.
And plus, they spoke to a popular narrative. I find it crazy that the person that stood out against that was like and thought it was ridiculous, not necessarily because it was replacing gender, but because it was useless in terms of the actual project itself. Got backlash to the point where did they end up doing it anyway? Is that what happened?
Yeah, they fired him. I don't know if they did it anyway, but I know they did fire him off the project.
Yeah, that's crazy to me because in my crazy mind, and there I am being ableist.
Mental health trigger warning.
Right. To me, it seems ridiculous that somebody that's actually sounds reasonable and saying we don't need to waste time changing words just because somebody might read this and be bothered by it when it's not even referring to people or a specific person. That to me sounds like a reasonable point of view, but instead people just want to get angry and make claims that somebody is being a bigot when they're not, because they want to pretend that they're fighting for something worth their time or that's valuable to society.
And the worst part about it is that this is the same industry where people are always saying, "Oh, there's a problem in tech because there are too many men, or there aren't enough blacks and Latinos. There are all these other problems," and they, a lot of the feminists who are part of that in the tech industry, nobody wants to do anything substantive to it, and then you get distracted because of stuff like this, which has nothing to do with anything. It's a non-issue.
Yeah. Well,
as far as
like my question about all this is like even an example of this Django thing with slave and master or whatever. Who is actually reading this and getting offended? I mean, you read it, the documentation, so you're obviously in context of how the words are being used. So who's reading this and having a flashback to their days in slavery? Which, by the way, obviously isn't real, but
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like there are people that grew up in with that terminology. I remember when they were trying to remove I don't know if anybody's built computers before, but if
slave hard drives.
Yeah, exactly. And like 10 years or so ago, they tried to change that up to be primary and secondary because they thought people would be getting offended. But it's like the people that they would think are getting offended are the people that were using the original terminology. Like my dad has been in the IT industry for years, and he knows it as master slave. I know it as master slave. I'm not going and thinking to, antebellum Southern U.S. A time period or something like that. It's just a terminology. And in that case, it actually makes sense because you can't do anything. You can't do anything without the primary hard drive in that case. So it is, in a sense, a slave to a hard drive, which that brings another point. Can we no longer say that we're like a slave to our job or something like that because somebody might get offended? Isn't that the whole point of saying you're a slave to your job?
That's actually a really good point. I didn't even think of that yet, but I bet you that there's somebody out there. Like if you just posted that on Tumblr, if you said, "Oh, I feel like such a slave to the man" or something, somebody would be like, "You can't say that. That's problematic. There's a whole entire race of people that used to be slaves, and here you are making light of it by saying your job is slavery."
Well, to be fair, I mean, the Egyptians used Jewish slaves for thousands of years. Well,
Yep.
I don't know about thousands of years, but, for a very long time.
But history isn't important because apparently slavery was invented in America.
Right, and that's why they have to keep saying it's 2015 as if and anything from December 31st, 2014 and before just never happened, and it's not relevant.
But yet, if you're on the opposing side and you say something against the narrative, they'll pull up stuff from the past and be like, well, these people have been oppressed for years. Well, okay, so why is my point irrelevant then?
Well, because you're a Mayo conservative.
That's the worst insult I've ever heard.
Especially because I don't know what it means. I assume it's supposed to mean like because you're white, but I thought the whole narrative they're trying to go with is you can't be conservative unless you're white.
So it's redundant.
So where does that leave me? Because I'm pale as a ghost, but I'm part Middle Eastern.
Well, that's actually a
That
good
makes you
question.
that makes you a conservative terrorist.
Oh, I remember.
Conservative terrorist, really? Wow.
I remember what the term is now. They would call you white passing.
White passing.
It means that while you may technically not be white by lineage, you have all the privileges that come with being of a pale complexion.
And funny, I thought white passing meant you just looked white. Like when they say that about my grandmother, they say it because if you didn't know any better that she was my grandmother, you would think she's just some white lady.
So I hear white passing and I think of like a ski trail. I'm just saying.
Well, that's not the terminology that we used growing up. We would say passing for white. Because in context that makes a lot more sense. White passing, it's like, okay, what does that mean?
It means eventually that the whiteness will pass. You just have to be patient and let it go away.
Well, that makes all the difference.
Oh, all I can think of right now is when trying to make the white go away would lead to something very, very bad. I don't even want to say what it's called. I'm just going to go ahead and stop talking right now.
But it's okay, because this is a very problematic stream as it is.
Yes,
Well, we're listed as problematic shitlords, so yeah.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I've already made the terrorism joke before with somebody else that Scratch Point knows.
Oh, we also had the, what was it, Mega Man 5?
Yeah.
Okay, Mega Man 5, what was that villain?
It was 6.
Oh, was it 6?
Yeah, it was Flame Man. I called him Terrorist Man.
And then, 9/11 Man is. I took it a step
9/11
further.
Man.
I took it a step further and called him 9/11 Man.
Oh God.
That would. I feel like we should edit the image, like the, when you enter a stage for a Mega Man character and the boss pops up on the screen with his name. We should totally edit the image to say that.
Yeah, I totally could. But it's don't worry, it's okay. It's I have a nephew who is he was like a quarter Egyptian, a quarter Lebanese, and half black. So he's got a little bit of terrorism and a little bit of thug. In fact, this is more doxing him than me. But do you guys remember that kind of racial incident that happened in Texas, in a suburb of Dallas, with some kids who were at a pool party?
Yes, yeah.
He was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
did he actually have a run-in with the police, or?
He ran before they could do anything to him, but
there you go.
He basically said it did feel like that cop was just picking and choosing who he wanted to treat that way, because he said there were a whole lot of other kids that were acting like that, and he didn't do anything about them.
Yeah. Yeah, it did seem a little bit excessive.
But from what I've heard, Dallas has a reputation for being fairly racist. Like I remember somebody telling me there was a mall that black people weren't allowed to go to or something like that.
But
Which,
was it like kind of just like people knew, but they like the mall may not have necessarily expressed that openly, but their
yeah,
actions showed it
yeah,
rather
the
than.
mall didn't say no niggers allowed. It just you just knew you didn't go there.
So it was like Denny's. No.
Yeah, basically. Denny's and who else refused to serve? I can't remember. There's another restaurant that refused to serve black customers. Watch it something like KFC or something like that.
Oh god.
I don't. Oh God.
So they're probably like. So wait, but according to the racists, they would be cutting off like their entire demographic. So
That's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it.
just leave it to me.
Yeah, I've already been down that path already. Although the one stereotype that does not apply to me is I don't like watermelon. But I also don't like mayonnaise either. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it either, so I don't know why they're like going. But I remember that one video where the black woman was talking. She did the parody of like, oh, this is what happens at white parties, and basically like they served mayonnaise sandwiches and dressed up as like other cultures for fun and all that stuff.
Yeah, yes, that's something I've never done before. Well, once for school they made us like pretend we were immigrants to Ellis Island. So I think I was like Italian and I was smuggling in drugs or something like that. But I don't think that was based off a stereotype. I think that was just us being teenagers and we're like, hey, let's make this stupid school assignment actually worth doing. So
wait, hold on a second. So you were pretending to be an Italian immigrant that was mixed up with the law. So what you're saying is you might have been mafia.
yes, and coming into New York City, that's a big surprise there.
Oh, what was the other thing?
Which is funny because I think I was the only person in my class who was actually ever even lived in New York until they turned into hipsters and they're like, we're gonna live in the city because there's so much there and it's so progressive because you can go to the hospital and now there are 3 gender choices to select when you go to the hospital, which there is, by the way. Somebody was like, I'm really proud of my city for doing this.
I totally had a blackout. Like I had something related to. Oh, it was about the KFC thing. Remember there was the KFC commercial, and it had the black guy, and he was holding 2 drumsticks and dancing.
Yeah, I vaguely remember it.
Yeah, they had on YouTube. Somebody put that to the Guile theme, and it was just all kinds of entertaining.
But you know what? It's okay if we're racist on the Scratchcast. It's not okay if somebody else is racist about me on Urban Dictionary, which that actually happened. Somebody, I think the term was jungle bunny, and they gave a definition, and then in the example of or like using it in a sentence, they actually had my name on there.
Oh, so it was actually about you?
Apparently.
Do you know who wrote it?
No, I can guess who it was, which makes it even more ironic because he's half black.
Oh wow. What exactly is the Urban Dictionary definition of jungle bunny?
Well, it's gone now, so somebody must have reported it.
Well, this is 2015, so dictionary definitions.
That happened in 01, 02. That happened in the Dragon Warrior Online days.
Oh, okay.
But then I've also been told that I'm not a black guy. I'm a white guy that was burnt in a fire because I don't talk black. So, and this was a white guy that was telling me this. He was like, "Oh, you're not a black guy." It's like it's one thing if another black person tells me that, and it's like I can just roll my eyes at that. But if it's a white guy, it's like, what do you know?
But does he actually know how fires work? Because that's not what happens when you get burned.
No, they were not the merit scholars uh, that we know today.
Wow.
So no, he didn't know. He's
Well,
like,
I
oh,
mean,
you like all these white things. Like, oh, I didn't realize black people don't play Final Fantasy games and other RPGs. Which is funny because then there was another guy there was another guy that following year who was black, and he was talking to me about like Tales of Destiny and Final Fantasy VIII.
Tales of Destiny was PS1?
yep.
Yep.
I remember wanting that game, and I never had the chance to get it because my white privilege card ran out of money.
I had
Well,
that game.
now if you try to get it,
It's like $100-something, right?
yeah, it's
I remember looking
Tales
at
of
eBay.
Destiny 1 and 2 are pretty high priced.
Is that the police?
That is an ambulance, but those are my children playing cell phone games.
That's funny.
Despite my insistence to take that somewhere else.
I guess that's...
More like to spite your insistence to take it somewhere else.
But
There's
I don't know if I should be doing that. It might be problematic because I have a girl, and so that might be just exemplifying my male privilege or something. Because misogyny or something.
Well,
I'm oppressing her.
her freedom of expression. You can't do
Even
that.
though she's not playing it, she's actually she's the one that's being more like the male or the male in control, because my son who's younger is trying to play it, and she keeps trying to press everything for him and not let him play on his own.
So it's backseat video gaming.
Yeah, she does that a lot. She does that with me. She tells me how to play Kirby, even though I've been playing Kirby for 20 years now.
Well, remember, years of experience don't mean anything.
Oh, right, I forgot about that. Well, remember, I don't have any years. I don't have a lot of experience, so forgot all about that. Sorry. But if I set my mind to what I really want to do, I'm sure I can do really well at it.
And based on merit alone, you will get to that position.
And for those wondering, that was a real conversation that happened. Somebody did say that in those words to me.
Of those exact words. That reminds me of the whole if you want it, you can have it.
That sounds like treasure hunting philosophy to me.
Yeah, it does sound like that. That's pretty funny.
Well, maybe we should have looked at that in a different way then. If it's treasure hunter philosophy, then I can get with that. I'm all about treasure hunting. Because I'm black, so we always steal.
Oh, I didn't even make that connection until you said it, and I'm actually glad I did not.
I'm trying to remember. I can't remember who I asked. It was either when I was just learning Japanese and I was asking questions to a Japanese person, or I was asking like an ex-girlfriend or somebody, and I asked like why so and so, why they don't like black people, and the answer was because they steal.
Oh God. So let me get this straight. Stealing was invented by black people.
Yes,
That's the story we're going with. Okay. I can't even begin to explain what's wrong with that.
You don't have to. I've had years of adolescence to try to reconcile that one. I had a weird.
Once.
What
I
was
had
that?
a weird set of teenage years. I'll just leave it at that.
I was saying I stole a quarter once, but that's about it.
Uh-oh.
Well, it's because you're half oppressed, so it wasn't really stealing. Well, half of it wasn't stealing.
Well, technically, the half of me that would quote unquote be oppressed would say that I should have my hand cut off for that transgression.
Going
Yeah,
Code of Hammurabi style?
That's what I'm saying.
All right.
yeah, yeah, but people won't know that unless it's time to talk about ethics and adultery.
Oh, that's a
Then
whole
that's
other
when
topic.
then that's when no one will bring up that punishment.
Should we talk about that? Should we talk about the whole hacking thing?
Yeah, I meant to bring it up earlier when we were talking about how you can't really express yourself in a few words, and I said, yeah, if people can't even understand ethics and adultery, if they can't get the joke there, then yeah, you really can't express yourself in 140 characters.
So the thing that's really bothering me about this from the circles that I apparently follow on Twitter, which is making me rethink my choices,
The
is that
circle jerks.
yeah, is that people don't seem to realize that they're like, oh well, it's not ethical for them to dox these individuals. Okay, but is it ethical to cheat on your wife or husband? I mean, where's the code of ethics in that? Like, how's that any different or any better? And how are you going to paint people that are willfully cheating, or at least attempting to cheat on their significant others? How are you going to paint them as victims? What about the people that are having their families broken up, or their hearts broken because their significant other is a piece of trash?
Yeah. I think that hack was a long time coming.
I mean,
Funny story. I didn't know what they were because I don't check my spam folder often. But when I was in college, there were all these flyers for them all over the place, and I was like, 19-year-olds having affairs. That doesn't even sound like that works.
yeah, I mean, what 19-year-old is married? I mean, there obviously are some, but I'm saying in general, it's less common because those are the types of people that are usually out, having their promiscuous years, I guess you would say. But me saying that makes me sex negative and a slut shamer, so I better stop.
I can't remember what the term they used to use. They used to use for uh, the being promiscuous like that. I know they used to lecture you and I about that a lot, or people our age would. It's like, oh, this is the time where you're supposed to.
Oh yeah, you get out and have fun or something, and then later on you can settle down and have a relationship. It's like, well,
Yeah.
can't I just skip all the bullshit and try to find somebody that I want to spend time with? Is that so hard to believe?
Now I remember it because it was like, yeah, when they're like 30 and it's funny because I didn't want to reference MGTOW, but I know they brought it up where it's like, oh, then women wait till they're 30 or 35 and then they get married or something like that. But I remember, and it actually used to be a lot of guys who would be like, oh, well, I decided to get married now because, I've had my fun. I'm almost 30 and I've had my fun. It's like, so you mean to tell me from 30 until the time you die, you're not going to ever have fun ever again?
Right, and it's kind of like it also implies that the person you're choosing to spend the remainder of your years with is somehow not valuable. Like, oh, I had my fun, so now let me just settle for this person and we can spend our time together. That just seems terrible. I mean, in my view, I would think that the person I'm going to spend the remainder of my life with would be the most valuable person I'm ever going to come across, but that's just me.
Well, certainly the most fun, at the very least, if nothing else. You wouldn't want to spend the rest of your life with somebody who's boring or whatever.
Or thinks that they're better at Final Fantasy Tactics than you are.
Hey,
You've been playing it longer.
Hey, if that was the case, then it would be showdown time.
Samurai Showdown time.
There you go. But as much as I kind of hate to say it, after like thinking back to my teenage years and early 20s and stuff, they actually kind of have a point. I mean, I'm not going to say it's just women with that attitude, because I saw it was both, really, where they were like, I'm just here to have fun now, and then later on I can worry about a serious relationship. So in that regard, they actually do kind of have a point, where it's like these people are just viewing the later half of their life as the settling era, where they're like, I'm done sleeping around and having my fun and whatnot. So now I'm going to spend it with you. And to me, that's just like, I don't know. I wouldn't feel good about somebody that had that attitude towards me. I wouldn't want to be the one they're settling for later on in life.
Well, that actually brings up kind of a memory of mine. Not necessarily about me, but a friend of mine who was dating a girl for, I think, like 6 years.
Uh-huh.
And she was adamant that she would be married by a certain age. Now, the thing that bothered him, and the reason that he never progressed any further with the relationship, was it wasn't, I want to be married to you by this time. Just, I want to be married at this
Uh-huh.
time. So it made it feel like he was just kind of like, he was kind of like chopped liver, just like kind of, like you said, settling.
Right. So yeah, that actually kind of happened to a friend of mine too, where it seemed like the relationship probably wasn't the best one to be in, and yet he was at a point in his life where he wanted that kind of relationship, but he just he went for the wrong person and imposed those ideals. So I mean, it ended up not working out, but you can't really. It's difficult to watch a situation like that, because you can't really step in and say you're making the wrong choice.
Or you can, but it's not.
Yeah, you can, but it's not going to go well. The person's probably going to be like, "You're a dick. You're not being a real friend because you're not supporting me." But when in actuality, you're truly worried about their well-being. Although in some cases, I have seen where people do try to step in on other people's relationships, and they're basically just being idiots, and they don't really have a say in it.
Well, it's one thing to have an opinion on a relationship. It's another thing to try to tear down somebody else's relationship just because you feel a certain way.
Right. I mean, in the end, it's what the two people in the relationship feel for each other that matters the most. And in a sense, if you do care about a person and they are your friend, I would say that even if you know they're stepping into a situation that might not be the best for them, really the best you can do at that point is just be supportive of them and be there for them if they need you.
Yeah, that was going on a lot when, 10 years ago, actually. I wasn't really involved. Like, I didn't really understand a lot of the situations that were going on because, well, let's see, everybody's been talking about the 10th anniversary of Katrina, so I was busy dealing with hurricanes, and I didn't have time to worry about who my friends were dating 700 miles away. But, like, a lot of them they just didn't like nobody liked who the other person was dating. That's what it seemed like at all times, and it was like they were always trying to get them to stop and trying to get them to do who knows what, and it's like, you just got to let that work out, because it may be the case that might be the right person for them, and if it is a toxic relationship, then there's nothing you can do about it, especially if they think you're getting into toxic relationships.
Well, there's also the counter argument that if it's an abusive relationship rather than just a toxic relationship, yeah, I could see getting involved in that. If somebody has to wear sunglasses because they got a black eye, I don't care if male or female. I've seen abusive on both sides as far as I'm concerned. Then I feel that, yeah, you have some justification in saying you should probably step away from this relationship.
Yeah, I think if it was like physically abusive, I think I would definitely do something about it. I don't think I would keep quiet about that.
Yeah, I've only for females I've seen them be in physically abusive relationships. For I think most of the guys that I know, it's if they've been in an abusive relationship, it's been mostly mentally abusing. I don't know if they've been. Well, they would never tell me if they were being physically abused because something about masculinity or something.
Yeah, it's like we'll go into the whole it's a stigma, but obviously sometimes people keep quiet about that, especially if they're male because they don't want to be viewed as weak or something like that. But I
Yeah,
mean,
especially the whole like.
yeah, I don't necessarily think it's weak. Especially if you're in a situation where you're not hitting back. Now, people will say like, "Oh, women want equality, so just if they hit you, it's free game." But I mean, I don't know. Call me a white knight or traditionalist or whatever you want to say.
Mangina.
Yeah, exactly. I probably, unless somebody was actually like really, really, really trying to hurt me, like they got a weapon or trying to kick you in the balls or something like that, where you're actually going to get hurt, then I could see myself doing something. But if a girl's like, I don't know, punch me in the arm or the chest or something like that, I probably wouldn't do anything because I've been hit before and it doesn't hurt. It might get under my skin, but I'm probably not gonna retaliate physically. And if I do, it would be more for restraint rather than like landing a punch and knocking their teeth out or something. But that's just me and my personal feelings. Like I probably would look at it differently, and maybe that makes me biased or something. But I don't really care because I never claimed to be the objective person here. I do view
Well, I
the
mean,
situation a little differently because there is
But
a
what,
there is a dynamic of power, whether you want to admit it or not.
but what about logic and reason?
Nah, fuck that shit.
I mean, if I was being assaulted by a woman, I mean, I wouldn't do anything unless they continued to persist. I'd try to find every avenue to escape that particular scenario. I would not. I mean, don't get me wrong. If there was no escape, if I was in a corner, I had no other choice. Um, I would defend myself. I
Right?
would
Yeah.
use non-violent methods. I would try to restrain, but but I
Or learn how to dodge.
yeah, basically I would try to escape. That's. It might look cowardly. It might make me look like a meek person. I don't care.
Right.
But you can't win in that situation because then if you hit the woman, then you're a misogynist and an abuser, and if you walk away, you're a wimp. It's
Right. So either way, somebody's gonna have something to say about it. But that doesn't necessarily. I think if somebody was actively trying to harm me, I would probably, I'd probably do the smart thing and just let the authorities handle it.
That's kind of like how
unless they
wrestling back in high school was. They had a couple, what's the term, co-ed matches,
Oh, okay.
and my uncle, who is a big misogynist, he was like, "Well, Jason, if you ever match up with one of those girls, it's a no-win situation. If you win, well, of course you won. It's a girl, but if she beats you, you will never live it down."
The sad thing is that there's actually like truth to that statement in a sense, like from a viewpoint of society.
Which is unfortunate because I've seen some women that are very skilled at wrestling. I mean, I'm talking like the high school wrestling.
Right. Right.
Olympic style.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not talking like WWE.
No, because then she'd just smash him over the head with a chair, and then you got the equalizer.
Exactly.
Well, that's what they did in King of the Hill, or when Bobby had to wrestle Connie. They just turned it into
I remember that
WWE
episode.
style.
I wish they would put that on Netflix. That's kind of random, but I really
Put it back on Netflix.
yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
I don't know. It was like one day he just went in there and King of the Hill wasn't there anymore. which is sad because there are some seasons that they're just never going to release on DVD.
Well, they also took away Homicide, and they also they took out a couple of seasons of the Twilight Zone. Like, why have part of the series but not the rest? And the odd thing is, they had the whole series up at one point.
For a while, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think they had the Dick Van Dyke show. They took it away, and now I guess they brought it back.
You know, going back to King of the Hill, I saw a picture quite recently with Boomhauer, and his hands were in a Hadouken pose, and he's like, "Dang old Hadouken, man." I thought it was
that almost sounded like him.
It did. That was actually pretty good.
You just got to ramble more and have a little bit of a Texan drawl.
Regrettably, I've never really been to the South except for vacation, so I don't have that drawl.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up for 9:30. So we've got a couple of minutes left. I don't know if anybody has any final thoughts on anything. I guess now would be the time to express them.
I don't know. I don't remember Jerry Springer much, so.
Well, if this was Jerry Springer, one of us would be dating a goat.
And there would also be a pregnancy test and a DNA test. You are not the father.
And a fight.
That's Maury. My mistake.
That's Maury. There would be a fight, and then there would be like two brothers and sisters that are dating.
Oh, jeez. You know, the security guard from Jerry Springer actually went on to have his own talk show similar to Jerry Springer.
Okay.
Steve Wilkos or something, I think his name was.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. I saw a little bit of one of the shows, and it was no different than Jerry Springer back in the day. Same type of stuff.
Well, I've got nothing to add.
Well, does anybody... Who's down for some Subway?
Subway. Weren't they in the news recently? Oh, no, Jared was down in the Subway. Or down in the news.
I was about to say, as long as it doesn't have any pedophilia, maybe.
Well...
I don't remember the last time I've been to Subway. It's been years.
Yeah, I actually haven't been there in a long time either. But, now there's like a foot-long joke in here somewhere, but I think it's too soon.
Ooh, yeah, that might be a little early.
Just give it a few months, and then you can continue. Just wait until somebody acknowledges it's problematic, then you can continue.
Oh, right. Oh, although I did make a joke about that in somebody's comment section, because the video was about the fact that you can't... Somebody was saying you can't make jokes about Jared from Subway or something, and I was like, oh, really? And then...
Actually, yes, you can. It's very easy. It's just
proceed to make jokes.
Bad taste.
Yeah, it was probably in bad taste, but that's me. Let's see. What was it? I don't even know.
Well, I'm always rooted in bad taste because New York. Am I right, guys?
Oh, it's what do you call a line full of kids in a Subway? Jared's cheat day.
Oh, that's good. It's kind of like, how do you know it's time for bed at Neverland Ranch when the big hand touches the little hand?
Oh, yeah. I'll take credit for that one. I wrote it myself. Thank you very much.
Guys, this is really problematic.
Yeah, I'm triggered
because it's 9:29, not 8:29. Not because of the joke, because of the time.
All right. Well, I guess we're gonna cut it here. Thanks for joining me, guys. We'll do it again sometime.
Okay.
And thanks everybody for watching. And
Yes. Thank you guys.
yep. Have a good night.